is Kathy Barnard. I'm the chairman of the planning board. Let me introduce the other members, starting at my extreme right. I'm Brad Harriman. Brad is the representative from the Board of Selectmen on the planning board. And John Thurston, Mike Hodder, and to my left, Von Dugan is the vice chairman of the planning board, and Peter Goodwin. Matt Sullivan, our director of planning and development, and Leanne Keithley, who is our recording secretary. So the first item on the agenda is a continued public hearing from July 11th. Let me read it into the record. John Hoagland, 13 Bass Drive, tax map 158-2, case 2017-18. This is a special use permit. The only thing before us is the construction of a driveway within the wetlands. We had a site visit at 6:20 this evening. The planning board members who attended, Mike Potter, Peter Goodwin, John Thurston, Brad Harriman. I also attended, Von Dugan had visited the site earlier, and Matt Sullivan has been out to the site on a couple different occasions. Also at the site visit, there were several neighbors in attendance, plus the property owner and his representative. So basically we have some revised plans, issues that we had requested at the last meeting. The project has been approved by New Hampshire DES for a dredge and fill permit. And so there is work going on at the site on the house. And the issue that we're looking at, as I indicated, is the driveway. So, planning board members, do you want to hear from the revised drawings, the explanation from the consultant? Why don't you come on up and walk us through the changes that you've made to the plans?
I'm Deidre Benjamin, Stony Ridge Environmental. After the last meeting, we did have a...
It wasn't you. It was it.
After the last meeting, we did set up an appointment with the association. So we did have an on-site meeting with some of the directors of the association to sort of discuss different alternatives and what the issues were. And so we took that into consideration. We did work with an engineer. These are not, I don't want to give the impression that these are engineered driveway plans. We were assisted by an engineer, but he's not planning on stamping them or not, at least at this point in time. So we basically wanted to provide you guys with some grading schematics, essentially, and the result was that the driveway was pulled a little further away from that shared property boundary with the association, which was a concern. So now we're not sitting, or we're not grading right to the edge of that boundary. We're offsetting the driveway. The drivable area of the driveway is actually going to be a little bit more narrow. That didn't seem to help the first time, but
So far, it hasn't shocked anybody.
great. Okay. Is that a little better? Okay. So as I was just saying, that as a result of the grading, we were able to pull the driveway away from that shared property boundary, so it's not grading right up to the edge of it anymore. And as a result of the grading, we're looking at stabilizing those slopes with riprap, or essentially a stone head wall or retaining wall to keep that from falling into the wetland. So those were the big changes from the first draft of plans that came through.
And questions?
I have one about the head wall. We don't see how it's designed. All we have is a slope with a really steep wall. You know, there's no soil that does that. There's something else involved.
Yeah, so when I spoke with the engineer that assisted us with this, he had recommended, he didn't come up with a designed head wall or anything, but he sent over a typical schematic of what he had in mind. It's obviously not for this particular project. It was just sort of to help envision what the intent was. So I can pass this up there if you'd like. It's really just a very general schematic of using stone to stabilize the slope.
Okay, but I can see from here the slope suggested there.
Right,
And the
it's
slope
not-
drawn here is not the same.
I understand, it's not,
Yeah.
he didn't put together a specific cross-section for that driveway.
So in the interim, any chance you could put some mulch on that right now so that you stop any fines and anything that erodes during a thunder shower, because it's real dry, and as soon as it rains, it's just gonna float away, and if you don't get riprap on it right now, then at least you'll have something on it that will hold those back. That's, to me, that was a pretty major thing that I noticed up there since it was in the wetland.
Sure, I think that's a completely doable thing. He does have his silt socks installed there, but I think putting mulch on the open area is going to make a big difference, sure. I mean, it hasn't, I've been out there multiple times. It doesn't look like it's moved at all. I think it's pretty compacted in there, but I think that putting mulch there is a very reasonable request, and we can do that.
In looking at the plans here, the top part of the driveway, the top 80 feet, it's plus or minus 25% grade.
Yes.
And on the plan, there is no indication of any berm, which is going to direct the water flow to remain on the driveway and going down onto that property.
No, there isn't, but that's certainly something that we can add on to that plan. It was discussed, as stated at the field or the site visit this afternoon, and I think the intent also, and I'm not sure if it's really drawn on very well, but was to pitch that driveway slightly away from the association boundary as well.
Could I add to that? Actually, at the end of the site visit, I was able to look at the bottom, and you could actually see the potential roll going up, which would pitch that driveway back. I could actually see that happening, what she had talked about down at the bottom to keep it away from the driveway of the neighbors of that other property line. I could see that happening.
But as the finished driveway, it needs to have that characteristic.
Absolutely. Yeah, it has to. You have to maintain that roll at the bottom high enough so that it pushes it back towards the high side of the hill.
Right, yep.
Hey, Mike?
After the last hearing, the original hearing, you were going to go and discuss the problems that Mr. Hoagland was having with the association regarding cars parking in the mouth of the entrance to the driveway to his property. Was that done?
At that meeting, we did not really discuss that. We discussed the issues with the installation of, or the concerns, I suppose, of the installation of his private driveway. I had to leave after that discussion. I'm not sure if Mr. Hoagland and the association members further discussed that topic. But while I was present at that meeting, we really focused on these plans and not on the issue of blocking the driveway.
In your original received May 23rd statement in support of the application, you wrote, I believe it is you, access to Mr. Hoagland's property is made difficult at times because people park across the mouth of the access route leading down to his property. And you're asking us to allow a crossing on a wetland because of Mr. Hoagland's occasional difficulty of getting access to his parking because people are parking on the shared parking area administered by the association. It seemed to me last time we spoke that your remedy lay, or Mr. Hoagland's remedy lay with a discussion with the association, finding some fashion privately to allow that opening to remain open, no parking signs, tickets, or whatever one would have to do, rather than coming here and asking for a public remedy in a crossing of a wetland. So I'm a little bit disappointed that that issue was not addressed because it's one I asked specifically in my comments last month that should be addressed. See, when I look at 17510, the only way this board can grant a crossing of a wetland is if there is no other feasible access road, but there is one, and is just occasionally inconveniently blocked by other people's cars. And I'm just not certain that that occasional inconvenience is sufficient to satisfy the requirements of our ordinance.
I understand. I think that it should be noted as well that it's more than just an occasional blockage, maybe by a car or the landscaping company. We're also talking about the entire winter months where the association does not want him plowing the shared access way. So, I mean, there's a little bit more, I think, than just that. And there's also pedestrians that are using that access way without taking into consideration that there is a driveway there. They have access to their property through there, and they do frequently have issues with kids or small children kind of running around the association area, and they don't feel that it's safe for them to continually pass through there. It's utilized as a recreational area.
Understood. It's still, I'm still have a hard time understanding why the applicant is asking for a public remedy for a private problem. When you have a means of solving the private problem, the association, I would assume that everybody could get along together, discuss the issues, and solve them to everyone's general agreement. No one's going to get everything that they want, rather than coming to the planning board and asking for a wetland crossing, which there are some fairly strict requirements for that. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Other questions or?
I don't see any detail of the rain garden. It's really just an
Yeah.
oval.
I brought copies of this for the board too. It's not an engineered rain garden, so when we do these, we provide the person we're working with essentially typical schematics of rain garden installations, including planting plans. So it's not an engineered stormwater design. He wasn't required to submit one of those. So really that's what we would provide him with, and that's what we would put on a plan for any of these applications, is just a typical schematic. This one's from the UNH Stormwater Center.
So why isn't it on the plan?
I'm not sure.
Because, what we have is a black oval.
Mm-hmm.
So we have no real knowledge of what we should expect that to be.
Yeah.
And I think it's an important part of the solution here to keep the water from running into the lake, which should be the biggest issue.
I mean, I did bring these for the board, so I can give those to you if you'd like, but we can also add that onto the plan as well.
We had two letters or emails from neighbors. Did you see those?
I was given one letter just now. I haven't had a chance to read it.
Okay, Barbara Hunt's, and also the McBrides had sent.
I have the one from Barbara Hunt right here. I have not had a chance to read it yet, though.
Oh, okay, so you're not prepared to comment on
No,
on her?
it was just handed to me.
Okay, well, why don't you read it, because you're going to need to
Sure.
answer the issues that both of them brought up, and then we'll see if some go to other public
Okay, thank
members
you.
of the public. Okay. All right, okay. Other members of the public want to comment? Oh, I was wondering if any other member of the public wanted to comment on.
Don, do you want to comment? Sorry, Kathy.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Usually I,
Not everyone had a copy of the two letters that I sent. I sent one letter from Canada from my cell phone, and never try to compose a letter on a cell phone. And after that, after we returned, I spoke with Matt Sullivan and asked him for a copy of the first meeting of the minutes, which he sent to me. A lot of words in that first meeting. It was very thorough. I think all of you have a copy of my two letters now.
yeah, yes, we do.
Mike mentioned what you need to go by as the planning board. And in my last paragraph, or the last number of bullets, the requirements are quite contrite on what flexibility you have in granting a permit such as this, special use permit, over a wetland. The wetland, the engineer, or I don't know if it's an engineer or not, because the first speaker mentioned that a lot of the requirements that the planning board needs to have are not engineered at this point, and they need to be. In the first documents or plans, it said that maybe 95 square feet of area was going to be covered, and that was very minor. And I don't know if that's correct or not. It seems rather small when you look at what's there now, and it's not complete. And the sides have to be sloped. It has to be more than 95 square feet. So I looked at it as a percentage of the whole area. And that driveway going through that wetland/drainage area is going to cover a high percentage of that drainage area. And all the runoff, I don't know if any of you drove up higher, even the town is having trouble handling the runoff from that steep hill. This is a tremendously steep hill that slopes right down into the lake. And it isn't just Mr. Hoagland that needs to deal with this. I think our association can do more about, I mentioned with Matt Sullivan about cheating on our property, and I think a few minor things we can do to slow down the water just catapulting down into our little bay. We already have algae blooms there without all this construction, and having a driveway across the wetland is going to increase the velocity of water to the lake. It's going to increase the turbidity, siltation. It's going to multiply the effect on algae growth, algae bloom. So I think I've said enough. But if you have any questions, I'm here.
And we had your letter for the first hearing and then the
Thank
most
you. It isn't
recent
that
one.
you'd be
So we've-
denying Hoagland anything. You need to have access. And as far as blocking the driveway, it couldn't have happened very often. More often, it was his equipment blocking our access down there. But I think he's been very good about getting the men in and out of there, so it really hasn't been a major problem, I don't think, for us.
Okay, thank you. Matt, I'm sorry, I should have had you comment before. Do you want to make some additional comments?
I'll add a few comments. I don't think this speaks to this one. I just wanted to sort of echo the concerns of the need. I wanted to sort of echo the need for stabilization of the driveway. It doesn't really seem that that's addressed in the plan. I would mention, however, though, that this would be subject to a town driveway permit, and the review for that is performed by the Public Works Director. I did have a conversation with him today and discussed the revised plan, and he continued to voice his concerns about the removal of the guardrail and also echo the concerns of the slope stabilization of the proposed driveway. We did discuss the 25% grade. There were some questions about the grade not being delineated on the plan through topography, which was a concern, I think, at the last meeting, and it doesn't seem to be presented as part of this plan. I did have an opportunity to speak with Deidre prior to the meeting, and she is going to provide, and she has provided some details relative to the rain garden that I think could be incorporated into this plan set, obviously. You'll see in the construction sequence notes that under item number 3, this is on the plan, it is to construct a culvert and a rock head wall will be constructed to stabilize the slope. I do wonder whether or not that rock head wall combined with some riprap could in fact stabilize the slope of the driveway as it's depicted on the plan, but I think that would be up to the applicant to provide an argument for that. Aside from that, I think I want to just again bring up the concern of the survey of that property line. Even with the adjustment of the driveway, we are still in relatively close proximity to that sideline. And should the driveway be constructed in this location, I think it would be prudent for the board to consider a condition to at least have that property line surveyed should this move forward. And that's really all I had on the revised plan set as the board reviews.
And this is a town road, right?
Yep.
And the guardrail was put up by the town?
I'm not sure the history of the guardrail actually, Glenn, but I believe it was constructed by the town of Hillsborough, yes.
Oh,
And I spoke to Dave today about removal of the guardrail, and he was quite apprehensive about doing so, though he would be, I think, respectful of the planning board's decision with the caveat that this approval would be subject to its own town of Hillsborough driveway permit as well. So he would make that final determination on the driveway design.
It seems like quite a bit of fill is still going to need to be brought in. Do we have any idea? Cubic yards, and aren't we required to have that information?
Yeah, I think it's a concern, and I think relative to Ms. Hunt's letter, which you have now in front of you, that was provided today, I think the final resting place, if you will, of all that fill is a massive concern for this, especially with the side slope, what it is on that driveway. I'm not sure what the volume is of fill, but I think it's something we could ask the applicant to expand upon. I think it's important, and I think that's
Okay, don't,
the uncertainty there comes from the fact that the driveway is not really delineated on the plan, only its spatial location, not its real grade shown.
that's what we're here to deal with. Okay.
As I look at the driveway, it is, what, 12 feet wide, I believe? But the fill layer that he's going to be dealing with brings it up another 8 feet or so. And therefore, if it's a 45-degree slope going down, we have another 8 feet on either side impacting that wetland. And so therefore, there's going to be more impact than there is presently seen.
Yes, that's what my concern was when we were at the site visit, is that it looks like there's going to be more impact than the application is requesting. Okay.
Is there a requirement on the slope, of the driveway? Because they've testified that they can put riprap and rock, and you can kind of stagger it up a little bit steeper that way. Is there a requirement for that slope?
For the side slope or for the slope?
For the side slope?
I don't think anywhere in our regulations we have specific requirements for the side slope.
Okay.
I think that would be subject to an engineer design or something comparable, and of course, again, the Public Works Department's review, but nowhere when it comes to residential driveways do we have something specific specifically delineated for side slope requirements. So it's sort of controlled by the height and the grade, and all those elements that we're talking about right now.
Okay, but first of all, in the application, we have a denial of a driveway permit
Yep.
from Dave Ford, and I understand why we have that, but, I mean, it sounds, from what you just told us, that there's no guarantee that a driveway permit is going to be issued.
No, there isn't. It's like any potential conditional approval, in the event that one of the conditions cannot be satisfied, of which municipal driveway permit would be one, the approval will be void, essentially. And the Public Works Director has made it clear that he has very real concerns about the driveway design as it's proposed.
Okay, thank you. Okay, you wanted to speak? Yeah.
Good evening, Tom McManus, 7 Bodge Drive, Director of the association. Sir, your name sign's not up.
You're a good one.
Peter, to your question, from the minutes of the July 11th meeting, the question was asked by Mr. Sullivan, what would the width of the apron entrance be to Bodge Drive? Ms. Benjamin replied, 16 feet wide on the apron at the entrance, and noting that an additional 2-foot shoulders on each side, so that's 20 feet as it's being proposed to break through that guardrail. And I'm reading that from page 1 and 2 of the minutes of the July 11th meeting. To the board, thank you very much for your work. Speaking for the association, we've given a lot of consideration. We've had a lot of angst and agita over this. We don't clearly know what the best solution is. Our concern is, of course, for the local cove, the water quality, and for the protection of the association property below it. That's first and foremost what's on our mind. To that, I appreciate Mr. Sullivan's bringing back up the point about should this be approved as a condition of approval, the association would also ask if that boundary, that property line, could be resurveyed, memorialized with at least 5 pins, so those features that go into remediate water flow, sheet flow, and runoff, we all know where those features are relative to the property line. There's been a couple comments here that want to clarify, and that's about the blocking access of the driveway. Mr. Hoagland, I believe, took ownership of that property in roughly May, June of 2016, a year or so ago. There was, I am aware of an incident, and I don't know exactly what happened, but the house had been vacant, and the landscaper for the association property had pulled down there with his pickup truck and a trailer for his equipment. And it may have been that he had been partially blocking off. He thought the house was vacant, as it usually is during the week with the prior owner. It was only a weekend thing. So he did block it. Everybody got a little bit, but the maintenance guy got the message, and he wasn't going to park there again. Other than that one incident, I know or have not heard of any other incident where there has been association members blocking that driveway. The previous owner used it for many years, and the owners before it without problem. I know this puts a big question on you folks. I know these are not easy decisions to make. And the way we look at it is no matter how this goes, there's going to be unforeseen consequences either way, because our concern is that if the applicant's denied here, as I've stated in the past, he has every right to use that driveway. The association has never maintained that driveway in the winter. And the association does not plan on funding maintenance of that in the future. In fact, that's clearly in our covenants and restrictions that we're not responsible for keeping that open against the plow. Dan mentioned that when town plows come through during the season, that at the edge of the road, that can be 4 or 5 feet high at the top of the road. So if the applicant is denied, sir, I'm not sure if it was Mike or John, mentioning some private agreement, that would come. Our concern is what happens with snow storage, use of sand salts, and where all that snow goes and where that melt goes in the spring. But we've never denied access, and we have no plan to. However, if we feel that plowing or snow removal or snow is endangering association or lake, we always wonder what our alternatives are at that point. If you should grant, I really do appreciate the questions that have to do with new plans to be on file, berm and redirecting of water flow to be added to the plan, that pitch of the driveway away from association property, and will that be depicted on the new plan? And again, to Mr. Sullivan's points about memorializing and let's see really where the present property line is. Any questions?
Yes, I have one. A hypothetical? Actually, not a hypothetical. Does the association have ways, means of keeping association members from parking in front of Mr. Hoagland's access way down to his house now? If he were to come to you, hypothetical now, and say, they're parking in my access way, what can we do about that? Do you have ways of doing something about that?
The association is 14 members. Down at the bottom of that driveway, I believe there are painted eight, nine slots, painted slots for parking. Well, there's enough parking down there for every member. Many members take golf carts down. Many members, myself, we walk down. I've never seen the driveway where it is ever at a capacity to parking. I wouldn't know why. And again, for many, many years, some of these members, 20, 25 plus years in previous owners, there had never been a problem with, people not being courteous to the access of and it's not really, as you saw, the driveway, given where the parking is, there's never been a problem.
Okay, thank you.
I wonder if there is a shared access in the future about plowing, if Mr. Hoagland plows it and maintains it during the winter, would that be amenable to the association?
Well, you weren't there today. I mean, certainly, no. I mean, we can understand that. You can see that there's a lot of area. In a big snowfall winter, there's going to be a lot of snow.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of snow, and you can't really push it uphill. I don't know where it would go. I mean, it would just go down to where the present parking spaces are along a berm that we have at the lower part of the driveway. One of our members is number 9, so we have the association property on one side is number 9, on one side is number 13. Spring conditions, spring downfall, warm weather, big snow storage. I'm not an engineer. I don't know what happened there. But many of you saw firsthand.
I was there
Yeah.
last time.
Okay.
I didn't get the notice that it got canceled, so I saw it.
I could see where if somebody came in with a front-end loader and on some winters and trucked off snow, that would be one way of doing it. Mr. Hoagland himself has suggested that he would snow blow it.
So you would be
Snow blow it.
amenable to that?
If he wants to snow blow it, sure.
But that's not up to us.
No, I don't think that's the purview of the planning board to say, well, you can snow blow or you can't snow blow. Does he have deeded right of access to his property?
deeded right of access. So I noticed that on the minutes, there was a referral to a right of way. So in these
right
minutes,
of way.
there was a referral to a right of way. There is no right of way. Is there a deeded right of access? There's a deeded 1/14 ownership. There's a deeded right of use. Is there a deeded right of access? I guess legally, and I'm not an attorney, but I couldn't see how any association meeting could deny an equal partner access onto association property or in some way or another through association property. I don't see where there'd be any kind of, any rational footing for that kind of a thought.
Yeah, well, I'm not an attorney, but I
Yep.
think you keyed in on the right word, use. So the person has the right to use his property, and in order to use it, he generally has to get there. So, I mean, if he has to plow it in the wintertime, that's maintenance. I grew up here, I was born here, I've seen big snowstorms, I see what people do, and the snow melts, and unfortunately, people have to trudge through it at the wintertime, and there are snowbanks everywhere and anywhere. Sometimes the plow comes from the town and plows you in, and you've got to get yourself out. I mean, it's just the way it goes. I mean, I see an access way for this person to get to use his property, and to me, I wouldn't see impeding him to have use access in the wintertime for, I just couldn't do that. I mean,
Okay, thank you, John. Okay, anything else?
Nope.
Okay,
Thank you very much for your time.
yeah, okay, thank you.
I have a question which has to do with how wide that wetland is. And I don't know. The reason I ask the question is that my rough calculation with a 12-foot wide driveway and 8-foot gravel, you're going to have another 8 feet on each side of that 12 feet, which comes out to 28 feet wide, impacting that wetland. And the applicant only asked for 190 square feet impact. And I guess in some ways I would be concerned with the actual construction of that driveway if you're only allowed 190 square feet and now you go to 200. So I think that the width of the driveway is important, given that you're going to have a relatively wide footprint to that driveway.
Unless there's a head wall design.
I just wanted to add a clarifying comment. In reviewing the DES approval for this, after just a second ago, condition number 7 says within 3 days of final grading or temporary suspension of work in an area that is in or adjacent to wetlands or surface waters, all exposed soil areas shall be stabilized by seeding and mulching during the growing season, or if not within the growing season, by mulching with tackifiers on slopes less than 3 to 1, or netting and pinning on slopes steeper than 3 to 1. So there would be some netting and pinning on this if it's over 3 to 1 slope.
That's still magic soil. I mean, it has to be a head wall. There's no soil is going to maintain that, no matter if it's got nets or pins. And it says there's a head wall, we just don't know what it is.
Right, we don't know the size.
Yeah.
Right.
Madam Chair, in my experience on this board, whenever we've had a case where someone has come and asked for relief to be allowed to cross a wetland and is claiming that there's no other place on the property where he can gain access to his property and use it in a meaningful way without crossing the wetland, problems have always derived from the nature of the land itself. There's a ledge, there's in one case, a buried LP tank. Been a number of different reasons, but they've all arisen from the nature of the land itself. In this case, we're being asked to allow an applicant to cross a wetland because he feels it is inconvenient to get to his property in the way his property has been gotten to for years and years and years, because he believes that there has been blockage by people in his path. The ordinance says that we cannot allow him to cross the wetland unless there was no other way of getting access to his property. Well, there is another way of gaining access to his property, the one that already exists. And the only impediment that he has claimed to using that access way is blockage by people. That claim has not been substantiated, and we've heard testimony from the director of the association here that in his recollection, one example of blockage, an inadvertent blockage by a landscaper who, when he was told, went away and didn't do it again. I don't think that the applicant has made a case for crossing the wetland because there is another way of doing it, the way it's always been used. And I think discussions of the nature of the driveway, the kind of plantings, the slope of the driveway, the size of the wetland are all basically not germane to this issue. The issue basically is there another way to cross this wetland that would avoid damaging the wetland? And we know there is.
It does seem that it's a civil matter, and there are definitely mixed messages. I mean, it sounds like that Mr. Hoagland may have difficulty getting there in the winter or have future problems with the association because of that plowing issue. I mean, I see that it sounds like one thing, but then when you ask questions, it seems like something else. But I think, does he actually have a right?
Well, he's asking for a public body to solve what I believe to be a private problem.
Right, well, yeah.
He has an association. They have said in testimony here that they're willing to work with Mr. Hoagland. They've already had at least one discussion with Mr. Hoagland around some of these issues. So they talk to each other. There are only 14 people in the association. It's not a big chunk of people. Everyone can get together in one room and over a glass of wine figure out what's going on, make their own decisions. They shouldn't be, I don't believe Mr. Hoagland should be coming here asking this board to allow him to cross a wetland, asking for a public remedy to a private problem.
And further, I think our ordinance is clear, and the information that we have is clear that there is the ability to get to the lot without crossing the wetland. So I don't personally see how I can go against a specific ordinance.
Jack Lynch, 10 Bass Drive. Matt, did you come up with the occupancy solution?
Yes, there was nothing in the file indicating that there is a seasonal occupancy granted for this property. I will note that the zoning ordinance itself provides the town the ability to do so, but no such documentation was found in the file for this property.
First of all, from the association point of view, we took a vote, board of directors and membership. We support Mr. Hoagland's effort to have his own access to his own driveway. Excuse me. One of our concerns is, in the winter, because we've never used that driveway, is how do we get police, fire, EMTs down there in the winter? That is a serious question and needs answering. We can't answer it. Only you can. That's going to call for plowing. It's going to call major costs for the association to do this, to keep it up and running. Now, I don't know what that solution is, but that is one of the things before you that needs to be addressed before decisions are rendered. If he has his own access, then those three entities is a full-time year residence. They have to get down there and do what's required if needed.
Okay.
Thank you.
The property owner does have an access to the lot,
Yes.
and that's the issue that we're concerned about. Anyone else want to comment?
One other point on that. We have an amendment to changing our bylaws that were written in 74 that don't fit in 17, i.e. snowplow. We've never used it. We voted it out. Association is not going to take responsibility for winter removal of snow, sand down there.
Okay.
Again, those are private matters, are they
No,
not?
that-
Say again?
Yeah, that's, I mean, this board's decision is to look at the ordinance, as Kathy noted and Mike has noted. Is there an alternative location on the parcel that exists? And, you know, in this case, we have an existing driveway providing access to the lot, and it's not this board's jurisdiction to discuss the shortcomings of the existing access necessarily. It's really to discuss the proposed driveway location and its compliance with 17510 as the zoning ordinance. I think we're getting into issues that are not germane to this application at this point.
If I may, this board's powers are limited. We can only apply the ordinances that citizens of the town have voted to adopt. And in this particular case, this ordinance that this gentleman is praying remedy for limits us to deciding whether or not there is another way of getting onto his property that does not require crossing a wetland. And there is. And under those terms, the ordinance, in my opinion, I'm speaking only for myself, the ordinance requires a particular finding. So it's very black and white.
Okay, anyone else want to comment before we move on? Okay. I'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Somebody like to make a motion?
We're going to have discussion.
Okay. You want to discuss it?
Yeah, I don't think it's black and white. I think every lot in this subdivision has clearly frontage on the road for a reason, so that each lot, I mean, this one, I don't have a dimension here, it looks like maybe 50 feet, which is probably the minimum required. So it shows an attempt to make this lot go up and meet the road. So I would think even on the point of I would rather have my frontage come off the road to my lot. It should be respected, and we should look at, conditions to allow that. It seems pretty clear that the association doesn't really want him to access it via the association property. So I think that we should figure out, to me, the rest of the plan, never mind the missing head wall, which is a major issue. The rest of the plan with infiltration trenches and rerouting of the driveway is better for the lake. The proposed rain garden is probably where all the association water is dumped. Right now, it probably goes all the way down his driveway into the lake. So I just think that there are benefits here that we have to look at.
I think, in my opinion, and I hope I'm not being argumentative, the first hurdle we have to get over is the ordinance, 17510C2, which states specifically you can give the applicant relief if there's no other way of getting to his property to use it in a meaningful fashion. We have to get over that hurdle first. If we found that that was the case and there was no other way but this way that he's proposing now, then we would be arguing about the slope of the driveway and the budding and the thising and the natting, because those would become important issues. But the first thing we have to get over is there any other way of getting on that property that doesn't require going across the wetland? That's what the ordinance tells us we have to find first. And we have found that there is.
Well, we closed the public hearing. Everyone had an opportunity to speak.
And the ordinance doesn't speak to access via other ownership. It only speaks to access. So it's gray in the area of what if you have to cross another lot to get to this lot?
Well, in this case, the man's a member of the association and he has the right to use that road, and everybody who's lived in that house prior to him, or at least on that property, and all the people who live down the bottom there use that road to get to their properties. So he has shared access, as we've heard testimony tonight.
But not in the winter.
That's a problem that the association has to deal with, and that's something that this town is facing more and more. Summertime lakeside properties turning into year-round with contingent problems. But that's not this board's problem to solve, in my opinion.
Other thoughts, folks? planning board members?
One issue if this board decides to deny the application, then there's a difficult issue which I'm hesitant to raise, but it's one that was raised by the Conservation Commission, and that's an issue of restoration. And I don't think it should be, I don't think it should be ignored because the Conservation Commission raised it. And I think we owe it to the Conservation Commission, and there are folks, I'm sure, who spent some time looking at this, to at least, if not discuss it, at least be aware that it is on the table. If it doesn't become part of a motion, that's perfectly fine too, but at least we ought to acknowledge it.
Okay. Well, generally, we asked the Conservation Commission to look at these applications, and I think it's important for us to, or I'll speak for myself, to follow their recommendations, and I generally do that. And they felt that this other entry was not really needed. Then tonight we find out that Dave Ford has concerns. And I've sort of gone back and forth. I mean, this one has not been an easy situation or easy decision, but when I find out that a driveway permit may not even be issued because of safety concerns on the part of Public Works, and that fencing was put up by the town, I think there are issues, other issues that also have not been addressed. I'm concerned about more impact than the application is asking for. I think that was very clear on the site visit, that more fill was going to be brought in, and that was going to further impact a greater area. And we don't have anything disputing that. So I'm pretty clear as the direction that I'm going to be going. Other comments? Or does somebody want to make a motion?
Yeah, Madam Chair, if I could just, one of the issues I have with the plan is, Peter has brought up, kind of mentioned it, is the lack of detail of the 25% slope section coming down through the wetland itself there. We're not given dimensions of the actual width of the road there, the impact of the slope coming down on it, what the slopes are going to be made out of, whether it's going to be erosion stone, if they're going to try and mulch it or put the matting down and staple it down, stuff like that, to try and hold those slopes back. So there's a lot of unknowns up in that area, which is the main part of what we're here to talk about the crossing of the wetlands here, that there's just lack of information on this plan for that. I think, in my opinion, combine that with the fact that I do agree with Mike that I think there is another access to the property that's available. Mr. Hoagland does own a 1/14th ownership of that common land in there, which gives him the right to pass over it. So in my mind, that gives him access to the property in that location also. So I just wanted to state those, that, I really had that problem with that, with the detail up in that, the driveway section up in there coming off of Bass Drive.
Thank you. Matt, hang on just a sec. Aren't there are all sorts of plantings required through the shorefront regulations, is that correct?
Yes, and if you, let's see here, as part of the shoreland permit, this was compliant. It was granted an NHDES shoreland permit, and it was granted a municipal shoreland permit as well. It was compliant with the 50-foot grid segment requirement for this property.
Okay, go ahead.
And the unaltered area as well. I wanted to note that as well. So this proposed plan was compliant with the natural woodlands buffer standards as well.
Okay. Peter, go ahead.
I think that if this goes forward, I think that the motion should include mention of the property line issue. It also should require that a berm be made so that water does not flow onto the other property. And because the request was for 190 square feet. That has to be dealt with in some way in that crossing. Now, at the other, one thing that should be noted is that there is a proposed rain garden, which is essentially a wetland because it absorbs water, which is actually of a larger area or approximately equal area to the 190 square feet, which is being lost. And so there is a replacement of that wetland area.
Okay, any other comments, or does someone want to make a motion?
I'll follow that up with a motion. I move that we approve this plan with the condition that we have rain garden detail for wetland replacement. We have berm and lot line delineation. We have a head wall detail, which is, it has to be a head wall. I don't think any kind of fabric is going to do it. To show that how that 190 square foot is going to be maintained and it won't spill out further. And other than that, I would recommend that we approve this subject to a driveway permit. That's an unknown.
What about further intrusion into the wetlands? They're just asking for 100 and...
No, that was part of it. It was that they have to show how that those head walls will maintain that 190-foot crossing section and not expand into the wetlands.
Okay.
I would actually note that the minutes from the last meeting left off a 1. So it said 90 square feet of wetland. It should have said 190 square feet of wetland.
Okay. That's what the application stated.
And I would also add that the NHDES approval states this is to retain approximately 186 square feet. So it is approximate, but it's a slightly different square footage, but I think it's still in the snuff realm.
So that's my motion.
Okay. Anyone second the motion?
Second.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay, so did you vote against it?
I voted against the motion.
John, too? Yeah, okay, so 4-2. So in that case, Mike, do you want to make a motion to
Sure.
deny this?
I move that the board deny case number 2017-18, tax map 158-002, applicant John Hoagland and Sharon Wells. And I move further that the board instruct the applicant to restore the wetland that had been disturbed to its original condition. And Matt would have to help me there. I don't know how one would go about proving that a wetland had been restored, and if there is such a way, that should be part of this motion.
I think we can work with the Conservation Commission to do so I think in partnership with NHDES to ensure that wetland is restored adequately. I know NHDES has conducted a site visit to this property, so they're aware of what the condition is, so I think we could inform them of our decision and work with them to ensure the restoration is completed.
Then I'll just end the motion with, and restore the wetland to its original condition, period.
Okay, thank you. Okay, somebody want to second the motion?
Seconded.
Okay. Motion has been made and seconded to deny this application. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
4-2. Okay. Okay, folks, thank you very much. As you can see, this was a difficult decision. Probably everybody's going to leave here with a degree of unhappiness, and sorry for that, but our job in this case is to protect the wetland area, and the ordinance simply didn't allow us to approve this type of application. Thank you very much. Okay, on to the next item. Next item is public comment. Anyone wants to comment to the planning board on any item that is not already on the agenda, now is the time to do that. Yes.
Suzanne Ryan, Stoneham Road, Wolfboro. I was surprised to see on the amended agenda discussion for your next agenda item. And I'm not sure just where this is headed. Concerned about the process, and I asked the question, what brings this back? And back to your board. And further, I was here at your board meeting on September 6, 2016, and under public comment, I had asked, would the board consider, and you didn't say no, so I was wondering, did you consider working on a checklist for this process and to take such from the board's the Board of Selectmen's 2000 policy? It's a good document, and I think it should be the points that that they lay out, A through G, especially C, D, E, F, and G, are very useful in the process. I'll leave you this copy. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that the town voted 15 scenic roads and 4 Class 6 roads. Should you, or are you going to reassess this in detail and take into consideration the dual track of scenic rural road plus Class 6 road? In other words, when you look at it as a Class 6 road, put your other hat on and think of it as a scenic rural road. Play those considerations into your thought process. A document I'd like to give you is the town's composite map shows that there is access in another manner to this lot.
I think we're getting danger,
wait a minute.
Suzanne, we're getting very close to
Yeah,
commenting on.
you can make comments, but on an item that is not on the agenda, and
Oh, not on the agenda.
Yes,
Yeah.
right.
Oh.
So, and there,
So when does the public get a chance to talk to you about this important decision that you're going to be making?
you mean the Class 6 road?
Yeah.
We're not making a decision. We're simply, our responsibility is to make comments.
Well, you are making a decision because you're basically advising the Board of Selectmen of your opinion and your decision. You are going to come to a decision, whether yay or nay, you're going to come to a decision, or you're going to put conditions, but when does the public get an opportunity to talk to the planning board? You know, this was put on the agenda as a last-minute item, and had anyone known it was going to be on the agenda, we could have perhaps, or I could have perhaps come in the meeting before and discussed it with you when it wasn't on the agenda. It doesn't make sense that now it's on the agenda, you can't speak to it under public comment. I will just add one last thing. Please use your master plan when you deliberate on this tonight. The master plan is very clear that a landowner cannot obtain a building permit for development if the only lot frontage is on a Class 6 highway unless the landowner receives a special exception. So what happened to special exception in this process? But I would like to leave this documents with you anyway, even
Okay.
though I can't speak to it.
Okay,
And I got response from the mapping people, it's in here, that talks about those lines.
okay. All right, thank you. You have copies for? Okay. Okay, so maybe you can,
Yeah, if you, Kathy, you want to pass them over?
thank you. Okay, the next item is an action item. Application for a building permit on a Class 6 road, tax map 104-11, Michael Simmons. And this is in accordance with RSA 674-41. It is not a public hearing, and the planning board is reviewing this and passing their comments on to the Board of Selectmen. And so that's what we'll be doing this evening. The Board of Selectmen then would be up to them to authorize a building permit if they see fit. The Planning Board has previously reviewed this request back in May 24th, 2016. And according to the information we have, since this is also a scenic road, there will be a public hearing required for that part of the request, but that is not before us tonight because it has not been advertised.
Correct.
So now Matt is going to go through
Yes, thank you very much, Kathy.
issues that we need to address to the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah, and as Kathy mentioned, the board has had an opportunity to review this proposal in May of this last year. I just want to quickly touch on, to begin here, I want to quickly touch on the Class 6 road policy, how it relates to the planning board, and as Kathy has already jumped into a little bit, what the board's role is directly. So obviously pursuant to 674-41 and that Class 6 road policy, which was adopted in 2007, the planning board the role here is to evaluate and comment on the proposal as it's presented to the board on all Class 6 roadways. And the standards for which it's asked to evaluate this, they're items A through G, as actually Ms. Ryan mentioned in her discussion of the Class 6 road policy, and that's actually listed on page 2 of the document. And I'm going to review these in detail right now just so we can discuss them after I get done. A is conditions of the road. Does the road have adequate width, drainage, and grade to handle the increased development? B, conditions of connecting roads. Are the roads leading to the Class 6 or private road adequate to handle increased traffic? Item C, effects on municipal services. Will the contemplated development result in a need for increased police, fire/rescue, water, sewer, and electrical services? D, is issuance of the permit likely to result in a quote-unquote occasion to lay out the road as a Class 5 road? E, how will the proposed development affect neighboring properties, and how well does the proposed development quote-unquote fit into the general growth/development patterns in the town? Item F, will the issuance of said permit tend to distort the town's street map or master plan? And item G, will the issuance of said building permit place a new financial burden on the town with regards to maintenance, repair of required infrastructure, i.e. electric, drainage, roads, etc.? So those are the standards or criteria that the planning board should evaluate or use to evaluate this proposal before you. The proposal we're reviewing tonight is modified from that seen in May of last year. I've included some reference material as well for you to review from May of last year, in addition to a memo from Mr. Ford, the Public Works Director, relative to this application. But I wanted to quickly start by reviewing the basics of the changes that were made here as part of this proposal. And if you have your plan, your 11 by 17 plan in front of you, that may be helpful to look at this point in time. This proposal is on Stoneham Road. It's located approximately 700 feet from the Class 5 portion of Stoneham Road, which is off to the southeast as you look at this plan, this proposed improvements plan here. Several activities have taken place that require modification. Some tree flagging has been done both in the interest of the future scenic road cutting application and in the interest of identifying other trees that fall outside the scenic road statute that will need to be cut or trimmed. The driveway placement has changed slightly, and some changes to grading have also been done. A proposed, the term that I would use is belly for fire department or emergency apparatus to pass each other. So basically a widened section of the road has been removed from this plan with consultation with the fire department. And that's actually as a result of some discussions for sprinkler in the home, so there is an emergency service compensation there. Utility undergrounding has been confirmed with the applicant. And also, per Dave Ford's memo, which I'll review in just a second, a drainage easement has been added for which the applicant will be responsible, but the town will maintain the easement on the property. And I am going to take a second just for members of the public to read through Dave Ford's memo as well before we get into further discussion. And this is dated July 27th, 2017, to Mr. Michael Simmons, relative to tax map 10411, the driveway permit and excavation permit. Dear Mr. Simmons, on July 26, 2017, I met with Jim Rhines from White Mountain Survey Company, at which time he submitted a revised site plan dated 7/24/17, response letter, and backup drainage calculations on your behalf and in support of your driveway and excavation permit applications for your proposed residence on Stoneham Road. Based on these documents and our meeting, the driveway permit and excavation permit can be conditionally approved. Conditions are as follows. Item 1, the project is submitted to the planning board in accordance with the scenic road statute. 2, the project is resubmitted to the Board of Selectmen for a building permit on Class 6 road. Note, I understand you will voluntarily notice abutters for this meeting, so that's why we're seeing this application before us this evening. Item 3, you provide a drainage easement to the town of Wolfboro for a new drainage outlet on your property. Please note, while the drainage easement is required, the town will not maintain the drainage within the easement or any of the drainage and roadway improvement proposed, as this will remain a Class 6 road. You and subsequent owners of this property will be responsible for the long-term maintenance of this section of road, including any possible storm-related damage and natural, for example, tree falls down on a Class 6 portion of the road, or man-made impacts, for example, ATV vehicle ruts up the road. Item 4, snow plowing by the town on the Class 5 portion of Stoneham Road will end just beyond the Greens driveway, which is to the south here, and we will dump snow at the beginning of the Class 6 section of the road. While we will make every effort to mitigate the impact of snow plowing, you should expect to have to remove snow from the entrance to the Class 6 section of the road, as we have nowhere else to dump the snow. I've copied the chairman of the planning board and town manager for informational purposes. You or your agent will have to make an application for cutting trees on a scenic road to the planning board so that a public hearing can be set up, as well as with the town manager, a meeting with the BOS on the building permit. If you have any questions or would like to discuss further, please contact me, David Ford. So that letter was issued on July 27th, 2017. At this point, I would sort of ask the board to return to those items A through G within the Class 6 road policy. I would encourage a discussion of each of them to ensure that you're thorough. And then obviously this board is charged with providing a recommendation or review and comment at the end of this discussion for the Board of Selectmen in the interest of their consideration of the building permit.
Madam Chair, before we go any further, can I ask the planner, has Mr. Simmons entered into an agreement with the town, understanding that the town will not be responsible for maintenance of that portion of Stoneham Road? Has Mr. Simmons also entered into an agreement with the town, recognizing the fact that the town's liability for providing fire and police and emergency services is either limited and or non-existent, given the status of that road? And if so, have they been recorded with the Carroll County Courthouse? Because it's kind of difficult to make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen absent that information.
Okay, so I think I understand your question, and that is, has the formal agreement been reached with the Simmons to delineate this as a Class 6 section of road that will not be maintained by the town?
Just per 67441.
Right.
A, 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, a formal agreement has not been reached, but per Dave Ford's memo, the town will not be performing any maintenance on that section of the road, and therefore it will remain a Class 6 road.
Has the applicant entered, are you aware, or is the Board of Selectmen aware, whether the applicant is going to record along with the deed statements to future owners that snow plowing is problematical?
I'm hesitant to confirm that, but an easement,
That will be recorded with the deed.
will be recorded with the deed, and therefore I would assume that in the interest of due diligence for future property owners, they would be aware of potential issues with snow on the road.
That's a drainage easement.
Yeah, that's
not
true.
to have anything to do with snow plowing.
Again, I think that because the Class 6 designation will be maintained,
These are questions that the Board of Selectmen are going to have to address with Mr. Simmons, but I just find it difficult to make a recommendation to the BOS absent all the information I think I need to make a proper one.
yeah, Mike, I guess I'm not clear.
But can't one of the recommendations be that they need a formal agreement and it should be recorded?
Yeah, we could make that as a condition.
For future,
Okay, so what would the formal agreement, would say what exactly?
It would have to go beyond drainage to include snow plowing, that the town is not responsible.
Okay,
Per 67441, Roman numeral 1, C, 2, an agreement that the municipality neither assumes responsibility for maintenance nor liability for any damages resulting from the use thereof. That's the language. And the applicant, prior to the issuance of a building permit, needs to produce evidence of the notice of the limits of municipal responsibility or reduced municipal responsibility for that very reason.
okay,
We also need to have some form of, in addition to the drainage easement, to be recorded, also another easement or some statement in the deed alerting future owners that there will be a problem with snow plowing. I don't know how to word that.
Okay.
I would ask either the board or the planner to come up with wording on that.
okay, so as far as the condition of the road, has the fire department looked at this then? We have comments from them?
Fire department has had an opportunity to review this as part of the initial submission again back in May, and the modifications to this plan have been discussed with the fire department. These plans are actually a revision based on those discussions, again, to remove that pass-through section of the road in exchange, if you will, for sprinklering of the home. So that conversation has occurred with emergency services.
Okay, and is there something in writing that can be sent on to the Board of Selectmen?
The discussions with the fire department, their intent was to provide a letter from Deputy Chief Tom Zotti. However, as of today, when I contacted him, that letter was not available for the board's review. But certainly, that letter could be a condition of the planning board's recommendation to the Board of Selectmen.
Okay, when is this going to the?
Not sure as of
Yeah,
right now.
Okay, but
as of
not
right now.
tomorrow night or something?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay, so,
I can confirm that too.
okay, so we have, that would address the adequate width issue and the drainage, that obviously, and the grade, those issues have been addressed by Public Works.
Correct.
And I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
On the proposed improvement Stoneham Road plan that we have, sheet 2 of 3, proposed road improvement cross-section.
Yep.
This is going to be part of the record of this recommendation. So as I said to you before we got started, I haven't been up to that part of Stoneham Road for a long time. I can't testify to eyewitness current conditions of what that road looks like right now, but if they are held to what is on this plan, then clearly that road will have been improved enough to be safely passable.
So we could say in accordance with the
sheet 2, number,
Yeah, and we can date the plans
Sheet
too.
two. Oh, okay.
yeah, and I noticed the plan is
Couldn't
signed.
find a date on the,
They're certified as of 7/24/2017.
oh, God.
Down in the bot, it's,
Really?
yes.
Oh, my goodness. If you say so. Okay, so 7/20. Okay, so-
7/24/2017.
So, folks, as to the condition of the road, it has been discussed with the fire department. We're proposing that a letter be written to the Board of Selectmen from the fire department stating that the width is okay and that the house would be fully sprinkled. And also, Public Works has reviewed this and approved the plan dated 7/27/17, sheet 2.
7/24.
7/24, okay. So is that okay with everybody?
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, conditions of connecting roads. The roads leading to Class 6 or private road adequate to handle increased traffic?
So again, to the south side of this, or again, southeast, Stoneham Road is a Class 5 road providing access. This particular building permit proposal involves the construction of a single-family home and attached garage. Therefore, in my opinion, the conditions of connecting roads are adequate because of the limited scale of development and the proximity to a Class 5 road.
Yeah, I think that's fair, too. It's a single-family home.
And I think part of our recommendation is that it should not be subdividable as a Class 6 road. So there's not more than one.
Right.
I would go with that, too.
Yeah, we should make that recommendation.
Oh, okay, should that go in this B?
It could be, I think it may be more appropriate to add to E, perhaps, when we get to that.
Okay,
And I apologize, we have a specific form related to that subdivision. You're essentially signing, agreeing to not subdivide your property. It's a specific form, I can't remember the name of it, but we do have such a form on file here with the town that we've used in a few situations.
Well, when this letter is drafted, you'll know that name, so that'll be fine. And I would assume that should go into paragraph E.
That's what I think that's the best place.
okay, so is everybody okay with B? Stoneham Road is a Class 5 in proximity to this lot, and this is just for one single-family home. So,
And with a
The-
subdivision,
right, but the condition of the road, of the connecting roads are adequate.
Yeah.
Is everybody okay with that? Okay. Okay,
The effects on municipal services, this specifically says, is the contemplated development going to produce a need for increased police, fire, rescue, water, sewer, and electrical services? The answer here is that it will produce an increase, but really just as much as any single-family development would, in my opinion. And because these services have had an opportunity to comment and weigh in on the proposal, I think, I'm not comfortable to speak on their behalf, they appear to be comfortable with the proposal as it's being submitted today. And again, the demand is really that of a single-family home.
okay, and there are other single-family homes in the area.
There are single-family homes on the Class 5 portion of Stoneham Road,
Right.
not on the Class 6 portion.
doesn't the planning department have a waiver with people building on 674-41 style roads waive their
Yes.
police, fire, and ambulance protection rights?
Yes, and that has been incorporated into past conditional recommendations, and we certainly could add it to this as well.
I would recommend that we do it for number C as well.
Okay,
It's a Class 6 road, it's a Class 6 waiver, essentially.
Class 6.
And again, you'll know the title of the document and can supply the appropriate
Yeah,
wording.
we have a specific name for that as well in town. Is everyone comfortable with that?
Okay, well, there is no sewer up there.
Right.
There is electric service, and there's no, everybody's on
Right,
wells.
right.
Yeah.
Correct.
So,
Where is the last pole?
The last utility pole. So my understanding of the proposal as it exists today is you'll see at the end of the Class 5 portion of the road, do you see the two utility poles? They're indicated with the black hurricane symbols, if you will.
Yep.
My understanding is that those utilities will then be undergrounded, or shortly thereafter will be undergrounded to the site. That's the
And-
conversation as I
And
understand it
that's,
right now.
At the expense,
Detail is-
at the expense of the property owner.
And part of the complication there was with the cutting of the trees. In order to go overhead to the property, there would have been a more significant impact to tree cutting, especially in the context of scenic roads, for providing that service. So underground utility service was preferable.
It says so on the plan.
It's on the backside,
And there are details provided as well.
back of that page.
Everyone comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Item D is the issuance of the permit likely to result in an occasion to lay out the road as a Class 5 road. The standard proposed would not constitute an upgrade to a Class 5 standard, and as a result, the answer is no. And per our discussion earlier, there will be no maintenance, obviously, of this section of roadway, and therefore wouldn't be public served.
This is a dangerous area, though, as I noted in May of last year, and if you read the minutes, once this road has been improved to become passable, then it's not a very far cry to a petition from a small number of town residents to have this road adopted as a Class 5 road by the town.
You'd have to meet standard.
Would have to be standard, okay.
You'd have to meet
road.
standard. So as proposed, it does not meet the Class 5 standard.
Agreed.
So there would be an upgrade cost associated with it.
The danger is a Class 6 road, everybody knows, is basically impassable.
Right.
Or essentially impassable. A Class 5 road is passable, and there's this very short hop from Class 5 to a petitioned adopted town road with all of the consequent expense that brings onto the town.
That is true.
So I was then and I am now leery about allowing building permits on Class 6 roads at this point because the potential does exist for an occasion to lay out the road to a town road.
It always does, though. I mean, even unimproved.
Agreed, agreed, agreed.
Okay, so we can say no as proposed.
That would be safe, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that would be
That's,
safe.
yeah.
Okay,
As proposed, no as proposed.
Okay. Okay, Matt?
How will the proposed development affect neighboring properties, and how well does the proposed development, quote unquote, fit into the general growth/development patterns in the town? I wouldn't suggest that we handle item E and F together, but I think they get at the same question in many ways. But the first item within section E is neighboring properties. There is an existing single-family home off of the Class 5 portion of Stoneham Road. The driveway entrance is shown on the plan, and I believe by proximity that is the closest residence to this development. Beyond that, all I can say is that this is, again, a single-family home.
Where does the property line start for this, where they're...
So it's formed, I'll show you, Peter. Here.
So I guess then my question would be if that is this is the lot, the other houses ultimately be put on lots between Stoneham Road and that lot. Whereas this particular lot is not going to be subdivided, but then are we going to have the same issue again when those property owners decide that they want to build?
Yeah, I mean, the way I would answer that is that just as this proposal is, that would be subject to relief in the sense of getting a building permit before the Board of Selectmen. Of course, if that's contemplated within the context of the ordinance as it stands today. Speaking to subdivision, I only hesitate to sort of contemplate that because, obviously zoning relief could be granted for nearly any proposal. So I think that we need to look at impacts to the neighboring properties as they exist today. I think that's really the critical issue at hand here. But I think an argument...
But if one house is allowed on that road, then whatever the number of properties along that road are could equal the number who are up that Class 6 road.
Yes, and I think that the problem that you have there when you look at this plan here is we're talking about what we're calling a private driveway to somebody's road without being fully upgraded. And you have to look at the other contractors in our town that spend the money so that they can fully upgrade a road so that they can have a, quote, development road that goes to one specific house. And that's where I have a problem here. We're not being fair to the people that we've made go through the hurdles to build a town spec road to get to their property. And now we're actually providing a private driveway where it's this, if you build a road, they will go there. And we're just inviting more people out on this area, and it's not going to be a spec road. So we need to consider whether, we're either saying this is a private road to this one house and nobody else can go down there, and I have a problem with that one. So we're in a difficult position here. Either, fully upgrading the road is, to me, the solution if those people want to do something with that house.
You mean for this proposal or for future?
Well, it's reflective for future because what they're doing is they're building a private road. We're not asking them to fully upgrade it. We're saying, okay.
Just asking for clarification, that was all.
That's what I'm saying. It relates, not only this, but relates to more people going down this road.
So my question is this lot adjacent to the southwest, I guess? Is it developed? Is there a house on it? So that would be the only one additional house.
Yeah, I'm looking at the, promise I'm not playing on my phone over here. I'm looking at the tax map right now. The lot to the south is not developed at this time, at least not according to our assessing records.
Yeah.
John's point is well taken. And I think it's a problem that Wolfboro and probably all the little towns in New Hampshire are facing. We've run out of first choice land. We've run out of second choice land. We're building on land where we probably shouldn't be building. And the only parts of the town that are still available that have decent land, decent views, and fairly large lot sizes are at the end of Class 6 roads. They're under continual development pressure. Trouble is, property owner has the right to use and enjoy his property. State statutes allow a mechanism for that property owner to get access to that property. If the Board of Selectmen in this particular town approves a building permit at the end of a Class 6 road, there are various hurdles that a property owner has to jump through to get that building permit, but it's unconstitutional to put those hurdles so high that no one can jump over them. So this is pressure that a town necessarily has to face once it's run out of its building stock, its land stock. It's going to inevitably face them. All that we can do is do our best to manage it in some fashion that doesn't do violation to the land itself and to the nature of the town. We have a really large lot, and you've got a covenant not to subdivide, and it's on a single it's to a single family, and it's at the end of a Class 6 road. Apply the Board of Selectmen standards, and you've, in my opinion, done about as much as one can, short of denying that landowner the right to do anything with his land other than walk it. You've done due diligence. you can't do more because more would be denying a property right. It would be a taking. That's just my opinion. Sorry, John.
No, that's well taken, and I appreciate your comments. I just, again, when somebody builds a road to their house and it's not up to the qualifications everybody else has to go to build a road to their development, then, you know, they're building a skinny road, and then the next thing you know, it's now a, like you said, they could petition to go between them, and now what do you have? You have a town taking up this road, which is a subpar driveway.
Except the town is taking no responsibility for it.
Yeah, but if a petition goes on the warrant article to adopt that portion of the road as a town road, and we get a majority vote to do that, then all of a sudden the town has the expense of doing that, and that whole area can be opened up to development. The no subdivision covenant protects the town and the landowners in that area to some degree, because you can't subdivide, but on the other hand, that is the way it works.
Maybe we should just leave it to the regular process.
Which is what we're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry for the digression.
Okay.
I guess I would like to make sure that part of what we're saying is that we are worried about other houses being developed on the same property or same roadway. And there's one now. and
Yeah,
then-
one potential.
But then what about on the other side?
Yes,
That's got a house,
right.
access
that
off
owns-
of the 5.
What about this whole
That's all part of this lot. Yeah.
And that property could be subdivided.
Not if it's on the 6 part. Have
Well,
enough
no,
frontage.
but I mean, they could do it on.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And a bunch of different directions.
Well, look, why don't we, how about if we just, as Peter mentioned, make note to the selectmen that, you know, these are our comments on the proposal that's before us, but selectmen need to be aware that there is another parcel here.
Well, we're supposed to talk about the neighboring properties as well, and
Yes.
so that's what we're doing.
Right, yep. Okay?
Mhm.
Is that all right
Okay.
with everybody? Oh, okay.
And in the interest of sort of rolling E and F together, the end of E and the beginning of F asks, will the issuance of said building permit tend to distort the town's street map or master plan? Just to be clear, I think what this is referencing is an official map under RSA 674, which the town, to my knowledge, does not maintain. So instead, the board should look at the master plan. And you know, this discussion has taken place at the board before. There are policy statements within the master plan discouraging the development or building on lots on Class 6 roads. But obviously, there is precedent to suggest that this board and the Board of Selectmen have approved said building permits. Not to say that precedent is correct, but I think it's important to consider that.
Well, the Board of Selectmen have adopted a specific policy.
Right.
And asked for our comments.
Right.
So,
There's a safety valve in place already, if you
Yeah.
will, to
there
those
is-
master plans.
There is a recommendation in the master plan, but
Mhm.
in our particular case, we do have a procedure in place.
Mhm.
So we're trying to follow that.
And what I would say is that from an aerial perspective, there is development in the adjacent area to this property in nearly all directions, including that along Stoneham Road. So this isn't an isolated property development on a Class 6 road, my opinion, but of course the board is welcome to comment.
Okay.
Anything else on that, or you want to move on, Kathy?
Okay with everybody? Okay.
Will the issuance of said building permit place a new financial burden on the town with regards to the maintenance and repair, I believe that's supposed to say, and repair of required infrastructure, i.e. electric, drainage, roads, et cetera? I think Dave Ford's memo covers a piece of this in the sense that maintenance will not be performed on that portion of the road. The electric service Obviously, because we have a municipal electric service here, it's possible that there could be service interruptions that would require some expenditure by the town, but nothing beyond that of any other single-family dwelling, I think. And then relative to drainage, obviously a drainage easement is being prepared. The drainage situation is being addressed via this plan set, as well as the road construction standard. And I think Dave Ford has commented on that to a level I'm comfortable with. And I think that it's clear that there isn't a clear financial burden placed on the town as a result of this proposal.
If the landowner is laying electrical lines underground from the end of Stoneham Road, Class 5, to his location, shouldn't he also be responsible for the maintenance of those electric lines?
It's an excellent question, and one I'm actually not sure of the answer to right now, so why don't I check on that, Mike? That's a good question. I'm not sure what the protocol is for that.
He's accepting.
We can certainly include that. I can investigate that, absolutely.
I think if you go underground, you're responsible for the lines that are underground. That's an easement with the electric company.
Yeah, that might be a good recommendation. If he's getting a drainage easement through DPW or in the favor of DPW, then he should be getting an electric easement or some equivalent, as long as it's not a matter of safety. Then he's already waiving his rights to safety through waiving his rights to fire and ambulance response.
Usually, once you start coming off the pole to go underground, that's your responsibility for the wire and everything all the way. Once they hang the wire, they connect it to your house, they're responsible for connection to the house, and then
That's right.
your responsibility from there on down.
That's right, yeah.
They are basically responsible until that transformer which sends it to your house.
Yeah, once it's at your house, it's yours.
In other words, I am responsible for my house, but everything up to there is municipal electric, and they don't want me playing with 12,000 volts.
Where's the transformer?
Why don't I check with Barry on this? I think that's a good idea, just to follow up.
Okay, but can our comments say that we've brought that up as an issue that
I think-
needs to be addressed?
Yes.
And we didn't add that the property cannot be subdivided.
Yeah, we should.
I think that should be added under item E.
Yes,
Any,
the 70, how large was the parcel? Do you remember?
28 acres, I believe, in total size.
You've given the town 20 feet wide,
Notes here.
And then that's a question, if the roads ever do get upgraded, let's think
Maybe it's
about
already been done.
2050, is that
recommended.
permanent, or is that until it becomes something other than a Class 6 road?
Development of that lot,
Yeah,
it wouldn't be able to subdivide on the Class
ever.
6. I mean, barring a change in state statute or some other significant change to policy, there are a couple things that could happen that would change that, but as of right now.
But we're adding.
Yeah, right. I think it's okay to add, yes.
Okay, and should we also remind or mention to the selectmen that we need to hold the public hearing for the scenic road?
Yes.
And that hasn't taken place yet.
I think it's good to add a condition relative to the scenic road
Okay.
approval. I think it's clear that that's necessary for this. But I think there's no harm in adding it as another comment or condition to this.
Can I,
Okay, anything else? No, go ahead.
yeah, back in May, I suggested that the BOS solicit comments from the Conservation Commission. My recommendation may have been made to the BOS at that time. There's nothing in the BOS's standards that I can see that calls for a Conservation Commission comment.
Correct.
I'd like to make that recommendation again, that Concom should have something to say about building permits on Class 6 roads.
Well, or this specific application?
The specific application and more importantly, in the environmental impact of building permits on lots on Class 6 roads. Some of the Class 6 roads properties abut conservation properties, and in that case, the Concom as an abutter would have something to say. But I'd like to have them, they're a resource, they're town volunteers, They have some expertise in conservation matters. It doesn't make any sense to me not to listen to them. They're free.
So my question was, we want them to comment on this application, not comment on the policy of Class 6 roads by the Board of Selectmen.
I was going to have them comment on all applications for Class 6 road building permits to the BOS. Suggest to the BOS that they expand their standards to include Conservation Commission input. We did that once before.
Yeah, I think there's no harm in providing that recommendation.
Just
An amendment
emphasize
to
it
the
again.
policy.
Everybody okay with that?
Okay.
Anybody saying no? Oh, okay. Okay, so basically, what we've just been through are our recommended conditions. And so, Matt, should we make a motion to forward these reference conditions to the Board of Selectmen?
I would
for their
recommend,
request?
let's get to that 1 second. I think what the board should do is make a motion of no objection to the proposal, subject to conditions. And I've reviewed past motions, and that's what the board has done in the
Our
past.
job is not to recommend a building permit on Class 6 road. Our job, according to statute, is to review and be consulted. And we've reviewed and we have consulted and we forward our comments, but this board does not have the statutory authority to recommend to the Board of Selectmen that a permit be issued. It has only the authority to review and consult.
Okay. Okay, so the motion would be that we have reviewed the request for a building permit and have some, have no objections, but do have some suggested.
Comments and conditions, yeah.
Well, wait, it has nothing to do with the building permit. We were only requested to comment on A through G. And so our response is, here are our comments on A through G.
That's correct. Yeah.
Not anything to do with the building permit. These are our comments.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the statute says they're supposed to listen to us, and we're supposed to review applications for building permits.
Or they issue.
That's
Yeah.
their department. Right.
So those comments for review, you're going to make a list of those, and we're all going to see them before we send them off to the selectmen? No? Or what's the story there?
Well, I can draft a letter if you'd like me to be reviewed by the
Usually
planning board.
You draft the letter and I'll sign it,
Okay.
and then everybody gets a copy of it.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
I think that's the best way to
Why don't
review.
you make the motion? Helen, you did such a great job.
Did I? I move that we send a letter to the Board of Selectmen reflecting the comments on items A through G that they requested comments on.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Okay, everybody, okay, motion's been made and seconded. All in favor, please say aye. Anyone opposed or abstention?
I'm going to abstain.
Okay,
I don't think I should recommend what's being sent to
right,
the board to review later, so.
okay. Okay, so Brad is abstaining. All right. Okay, so everybody will get a copy of that. So they have it, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay.
Well, the problem I worry about is with no real roads after Class 6 roads were opening up those properties for the
Okay, see you later.
disturbed land that we have in the town.
Definition of inns, hotels, motels.
It says you have to allow them, we can't stop them. Sorry.
a building contained in at least 5 and not more than 50 individual sleeping rooms or suites, each having a private bathroom attached thereto, for the purpose of providing overnight lodging facilities to the general public for compensation, may provide dining services to its guests and to the public, and may host special functions such as weddings and conventions. Again, that represents a consolidation that was presented to the board in 2015 by Rob Hausman of the existing definitions of zoning. The board has expressed some interest in visiting this proposal and making such an amendment to the ordinance, so I wanted to provide that as the basis for our discussion when we get into the zoning.
Can I suggest an addition, an edit? It reads currently a building contained in. You can't have a building contained in. How about a building containing?
What are you saying?
It's not contained in, it's containing.
Containing.
Yeah.
Containing.
The idea of having this with private bathroom attached thereto is to separate that from a camp.
I think it's, what I think of is a hostel style arrangement.
Yeah, rooming house. Yeah.
That's,
That's why Rob wrote it that way.
is that what, Robert? Yeah, that's.
So we have no hostels. Is that correct?
Not that we're hostile to them.
Ha-ha.
Not that I'm aware of. And
Okay, so
if
we
there are
can-
no other comments on this, I mean, we can proceed with this as a draft amendment to the zoning ordinance. Obviously, it'll be reviewed at subsequent meetings, but I think this is a starting place.
Yeah, I recommend it just to get rid of the confusion of what's the difference between these three things.
Yeah, that's good.
It's sort of odd that motel actually refers to a hotel-motel definition, and I think it just would prevent some of the confusion around these definitions, definitely.
So there'll be a public hearing on this,
Okay,
will there?
so we can say move to, this will be a public, move to, so you want a motion? Would somebody make a motion that we move this to a public hearing later in the fall?
So
I-
moved.
Seconded with the containing revision.
Okay, with the,
Just the,
okay.
Containing, yep.
All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Maybe you won't get home
Public
tonight.
hearing. Okay, now, speaking of hotels, we're going to be looking at the architectural design at our next meeting.
Yes.
What was that? So I didn't hear what you.
Well, Kathy,
Oh, I'm sorry, well, I was sort of asking a question.
I think there's one more meeting of the group necessary to talk about the visuals. Remember, I think we had discussed making sure we have those in place because without them, it may be unclear how it's designed to function. So I think we need one more meeting of that group, and then we can bring it to the board. But the text is in its final draft form, if you will, before bringing it to this board.
I'm missing the details here. A meeting with who and what?
So a meeting of the subcommittee of the planning board for the architectural design standards, I think we need one more of those meetings to review the text and talk about some of the visual elements of it before this board reviews it.
The good design and
Good versus bad.
I'll include that. So we are pretty close to
Yes.
included that. Okay, so
Must have been fun coming up with the bad design elements.
We're going outside the community for that, I'll tell you.
Hope so, yeah.
So when do you think that's going to be?
I think it's September.
Oh, okay.
I think it's the work session in September.
Okay. All right. Do you want to go through the informational
Sure, just a
items?
few items. Obviously, an amended copy and finalized and approved copy of the rules of procedure are included in your packets. I did also want to note before we get into the other items there that the RFP for the master plan has been posted to the town's website, as well as to sent it out for posting to NHPA, New Hampshire Planners Association, Northern New England chapter of the American Planning Association, and also NHOEP. Only NHPA has it posted as of right now, but I hope to get it up on the remaining websites this week. So that is out, and the due date for proposals is September 6th at 3 o'clock.
All right, and anything else? We have the wayfinding sign committee
Yeah, if you-
minutes, and the next step with that is to send the information out in the electric bills.
Correct.
Because we're trying to get as many comments as possible on the proposed signs, which are up around town. And the EDC minutes, those were requested by, did you request those, Mike, or was it all?
I think Paul may have.
All?
Yep.
Okay. And subcommittee,
So, I'm sorry.
architectural design, CIP starts Friday.
Yes, CIP, yeah, sorry, Kathy. CIP will kick off this Friday, the 4th. First up on the agenda, we have the Electric and Public Works Departments, so we'll be reviewing their submissions at Friday's meeting. And after that, we'll be looking at your other departments, fire, potentially police, library, recreation department, Libby Museum, a few other folks at subsequent meetings. Then we'll be working to create our spreadsheet and really go from there and come back to this board with a final program, which will be really exciting for me at least. And I plan to have that done by the end of September, beginning of October, if we meet all of our meeting deadlines. And I think there's been a really great job done by the CIP committee in the past years to do that. So hopefully we can keep that trend moving forward.
When does the budget committee, when do they start? For finance?
Well, their next meeting is September 14th, and then they don't begin until the second week of November. So I will have draft dates for that meeting.
Oh, okay, so we'll be getting ours to the Board of Selectmen in October, and that, then,
Town manager, September 3rd or around there. It's the beginning of September. Budget's due to town manager. And then Board of Selectmen review in the month of October. And Budget Committee reviews in November and December. Holds their public hearing prior to the second week of May.
okay. Let's see, July 11th minutes?
There's one change. Yep. It was 90 square feet in the minutes, and it should be 190 square feet.
Hold on.
Yes.
Sorry.
Okay. Thank you.
Gosh.
Good,
It's just off by a
Looked like it to me.
well, it's a good catch in this particular,
Yes, it is a big strip.
well, in any case, but,
That's really small.
any other issues, corrections? Somebody want to make a motion to approve these minutes as
So moved.
corrected? Thank you.
Seconded.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
No.
Opposed?
Abstaining.
And John's abstaining. Okay, any new business or other? Matt?
No other business at this time. One thing I do want to add is that I have a few smaller zoning amendments that I intend to bring to the board, depending on your schedule for the first meeting in September, potentially as early as then, relative to special use permitting, steep slopes ordinance, and I believe there's one other one as well, but I'm trying to get those in a queue, so we're not dealing with them at one meeting at one time. So I think we have quite a few zoning changes for this year, so I'm going to keep them rolling into you all for review.
Okay, what else will we be doing on the 15th?
On the 15th, we have the Scenic Road public hearing for tree trimming. That was noticed twice, and you'll get further information on that prior to the meeting. And beyond that, I'm not sure what else we'll be seeing at that meeting. Potentially some of those zoning changes, actually, but obviously no case matter to be considered.
Would it be worthwhile doing a site visit for the scenic view or scenic road tree trimming?
What I would encourage instead is, so I do need to confirm in advance of that meeting, just so you all know. I need to confirm that the trees are flagged, be cut. What I would encourage instead is for folks, to do a drive of that area and review the trees that are scheduled to be cut. I mean, if the board wants to have a site visit, they could do that, but I'm not sure it's appropriate. I'm just
I
not sure.
think we've generally driven, on our own.
Yeah.
And also, Barry has had video. It seems to me he had.
So we actually have some very good visuals, and I believe you may have already gotten those as part of, I mean, if you haven't, you will very soon, but he has some really nice aerial images in addition to specific pictures of the trees that he provides to the board in advance. I didn't get a video, but I think there are really nice visuals that go along with the request that the board will have access to that should allow you, if you do go out and just do a drive along yourself, should be able to point you in the right direction of these trees proposed to be cut. But
Will those trees be flagged?
so I believe they were flagged maybe even before this public hearing was originally scheduled to happen. However, I will confirm with Jim Shannon at the electric department.
Would you do that and let us know?
Yeah, yep, because I was going to suggest to really everybody and anybody that they go out and take a look at the trees, just so everybody has a complete picture of what we're talking about.
Look, hearing notice was in the paper, so I would think people who are interested might be looking.
Yes, so I will reach out to Jim Shannon as soon as I can, actually, too, and I'll let him know that I think folks will be looking out for those trees and that they should be flagged immediately, and I can send him an email tonight.
Is there a list of roads?
There is a list of roads. It was included in the public notice, but I can provide that list to the board as well. There are 8 roads or so in question.
Would that be available before the end of next week?
Yes. I actually already wrote the memo for this because we were trying to schedule it for another meeting, and we weren't able to get the notice done in time.
Do you have this?
Sure do.
Okay, good.
Oh, okay. Is it available for people to look at? Is it
Yes.
a convenient location?
Yeah, Dave Ford has a copy as well. Yeah, I mean, we can arrange someone to have a copy of it.
Yeah, okay.
It's a incredible resource. It really is. It's the Bible on roads in New Hampshire. It's an excellent resource. So, yeah, we can make that available.
All right. There's nothing else. We can adjourn, folks. Thank you very much.
Move to adjourn.